All right, confession time, hunters. Yes, we all know about the unicorn bottles, the ones locked in glass cases, the ones guarded by store managers like nuclear launch codes, the ones you have to know a guy who knows a guy who maybe knows a distributor to even look at. And don't get me wrong, those bottles are fun, but the internet has beaten those to death. So Bourbon Hunter Anonymous is doing something a little different. We're not chasing the bottles you'll never find. We're not worshiping the same 10 allocated names everybody else has already made it 400 videos about. We're going to explore the world of bourbon the way most of us actually live in it. The shelf bottles, the sleepers, the forgotten labels, the wait, this is actually good bottles. The new bottles nobody's talking about yet. And yes, a few that quietly disappear before anyone realizes what they were. Because bourbon doesn't just exist in glass cases and lottery systems. It lives in dusty corners, back shelves, distributor leftovers, and in bottles that never went viral but probably should have. So we're going to break them down, where they came from, why they taste the way they do, who's really behind them, and what's actually happening to them behind the scenes. No hype, no influencer scripts, no fake, this is my daily sipper lies. Just real bourbon and the weird, hidden, sometimes suspicious little world around it. Welcome to the shelf. Let's hunt. 1792 Bourbon, the brand that survived lawsuits, collapses, and quiet bourbon wars. Most bourbon drinkers think 1792 is just another premium shelf bottle. A safe pick, a solid pour, a name you recognize but never really question. But the truth is, 1792 isn't a brand that was built. It's a brand that was forced into existence, and it survived a series of quiet bourbon wars most people never even knew happened. The story of 1792 doesn't begin with a bottle. It begins with land. In 1879, a distillery was built in Bardstown, Kentucky, on limestone-rich soil fed by cold mineral springs. Back then, bourbon wasn't a brand. It was currency, medicine, religion, and sometimes crime. This distillery changed hands, changed names, survived prohibitions, survived fires, survived economic collapses. While other distilleries vanished, this one didn't. And that distillery still exists today. You know it as the Barton 1792 Distillery, the oldest fully operating distillery in Bardstown. For more than a century, no one called its whiskey 1792. That name came later. And when it came with conflict. In 2002, Barton tried to create a premium bourbon brand. They called it Ridgewood Reserve 1792. And that's when things went sideways, because another brand already owned the words Reserve and Wood. You know them as Woodford Reserve, owned by Brown Forman. Brown Forman didn't see this as a coincidence. They saw it as brand theft, so they sued, and they won. The bottle had to be renamed, so Barton tried again. 1792 Ridgemont Reserve. Still too close, still too similar, still legally radioactive. Eventually, the entire identity was stripped down to just 1792. No reserve, no poetic framing, no softness, just a number. Cold, historical, unemotional. And that number, it wasn't about whiskey at all. It was about power. 1792 is the year Kentucky became a state, and by using it, Barton wasn't just naming a bourbon. They were seeking historical claim. They were saying, we were here before your brands, before your hype, before your shelf wars. 1792 wasn't meant to be flashy. It was meant to be foundational. In 2009, everything changed again. The entire distillery and the 1792 brand was purchased by Sazerac. And Sazerac doesn't collect brands, they deploy them. Under Sazerac, 1792 stopped being a single bourbon and it became a portfolio. Single barrel, foolproof, bottled in bond, 12-year, and experimental finishes. And suddenly, 1792 wasn't just a heritage brand. It became part of a modern bourbon arms race. Quietly, strategically, and without hype. 1792 carries a high rye mash bill. Spicier, sharper, more aggressive than softer wheated bourbons, which means people either love it or they feel like it bites back. That wasn't an accident. 1792 was never designed to be gentle. It was designed to feel old school. Heavy oak, pepper heat, dry edges, minimal sweetness. It tastes like a bourbon that never softened for modern palates. 1792 small batch comes in at 93.7 proof. You can usually pick it up anywhere and everywhere. Flavors are caramel, baking spice, toasted oak, dry pepper finish. This is the baseline. Spicy, dry, and old school. Not sweet, not trendy. This is this is what bourbon used to taste like bottle. You'll always find this one. The 1792 single barrel comes in at 98.6 proof. The availability is pretty common. It has more oak, dark cherry, clove and cinnamon, and a slight leather note. Some DNA is small batch, just deeper, darker, and more warehouse influenced. This is where 1792 starts getting interesting. The semi allocated huntables include the 1792 bottled in bond, 100 proof. It's seasonal and it has limited drops. The flavors are vanilla bean, peppercorn, corn sweetness, toasted oak. This is one of the most loved 1792 bottles because it feels balanced, spice without harshness. When you see it, grab it. 1792 full proof at 125 proof. The availability is usually pretty limited and store picks vanish instantly. Flavors include burnt sugar, dark caramel, black pepper, heavy oak, and a long dry finish. This is the bottle that made 1792 famous in bourbon circles. It drinks hot, heavy, aggressive, and people hoard it. Full proof store picks are basically ghosts. And then the disappearing ones, the ones that quietly became unicorns, include the 1792 12 year. Availability is rare, it is allocated. The flavors include a deep oak, a dark chocolate, leather, old rickhouse funk, dry, tannic finish. This tastes like bourbon from another era. Dry, bitter, oak forward, and absolutely not made for sweet tooth drinkers. This one disappears immediately. 1792 sweet wheat. Availability is almost never. It's another one of those very rare and allocated bottles. This includes a flavor of honey, vanilla cream, soft caramel, and a buttery mouthfeel. This is the outlier. Same mash bill, but finished differently and selected differently, creating a soft, wheated style profile. People chase this one hard. The 1792 High Rye, it's on the ghost tier of availability. It's got the cracked pepper, rye bread, cinnamon, dry citrus peel. This is the spiciest, sharpest 1792 ever released. It doesn't show up anymore, but when it does, it vanishes. 1792 age 12 plus and the experimental finishes. These appear quietly, often regionally, and disappear without warning. Cognac finishes, extended age barrels, warehouse experiments. They rarely get marketing, they rarely get announcements, they just show up and then they're gone. Most people think 1792 is just a shelf bourbon, but the reality is 1792 quietly operates one of the most aggressive internal barrel selection programs in bourbon, which means some barrels become everyday bottles. Some become allocated monsters. Some disappear into private collections that you'll never see. Same whiskey, different destiny. And that's why the 1792 line feels fractured, because it is. It's not a trendy bottle. It's not a TikTok darling. It's not a unicorn chase. It doesn't beg to be collected. It just waits. And that might be the most dangerous kind of bourbon there is, because the brands that don't scream are usually the ones that survive. And there it is, hunters, 1792, the bourbon that doesn't shout, that doesn't chase trends, that quietly weathers lawsuits, ownership changes, and the hidden battles most drinkers never see. On the surface, it's a shelf bourbon, ordinary, recognizable, safe. But underneath, it's a lesson in strategy, persistence, and subtle power. Some bottles are everywhere, some vanish without warning, some never appear at all. The whiskey doesn't change, the story does. And in the quiet corners of bourbon history, the brands that survive are rarely the loudest. They're the ones that wait, patient, unseen, unshakable. So the next time you pour a glass of 1792, remember, you're not just tasting bourbon, you're tasting history, survival, and a little bit of bourbon world you didn't know existed. I'm Bourbon Hunter Anonymous, and this is what it looks like when a brand quietly wins.